go back over to 1 Thessalonians and let the Bible continue to edify us here. In 1 Thessalonians 5 and 6.
Let us watch and be sober.
So the Bible declared unto us for us not to sleep as other people sleep, but let us watch. In other words, be observant of what's happening in your vineyard. Be aware of what's happening around you. Don't be afraid. Be aware of what's happening around you. But the Bible said, and do what? Watch and be what? Sober. Now, how can you watch and be drunk? Well, if a person is drunk, that means that they're wobbling back and forth. They're incoherent. That means that they're not thinking clearly, right? Well, if you're not careful, you can watch in the valley of the shadow of death. You can see all the trouble. You can see all the turmoil. You can see all the adversity. You can see all these bad things, and you can become drunk, thinking that those things are incoherent, thinking that those things are going to apply to who? You, exactly. And at that moment, God's people are being tossed to and fro. Why? Because their thinking is now causing them to go against what you just learned in Psalms 23. It is God's rod. It is God's staff that's fighting for who? Come on.
For us.
Exactly. So why should we become drunk thinking incoherently that God has left us somehow alone? Because if we get bombarded with all the bad news, and it's at that time, this is sober thinking, like the blind man. All I know is that I once was blind and now I see. All we know is that we are here today in our right mind, with our faculties, our health, strength, and his peace and joy is upon us. That's all we know. Yep. Is the world perfect? No, the world's not perfect. But do we serve a God that is perfect? Absolutely. Do we serve a God that's using his rod and his staff to fight for us? Absolutely. So what do we have to be in despair about? So what the situation around us is bad. God is going to do what for the children of light? The Bible is telling us. Not only is he going to let us know ahead of time, he's going to protect us. That's what Psalm 23 said. But if you start worrying, if you start thinking that what's happening in the world is going to happen to you, you are intoxicated. You are thinking incoherently because you are negating what Psalms 23 just said. It's God's rod and God's staff. He didn't say it was your rod and your staff. It's God's. So this is who we are. The children of light are people who do not think incoherently. They are people who think soberly. Yep, it is a bad situation, isn't it? I can be in a conversation with someone. I've been in a conversation with people at work or in the community say, yep, boy, there's a lot of bad stuff going on around. Yep, sure is. The operative word is around. Because if they're asking me about how things apply to me, I got to say, God is protecting me. God has blessed me. God has preserved me. I have my faculties. I'm here today. Is everything, all the things lined up the way I ultimately want it? No. But has God preserved me? Yes. That's all I can face on. That's all I can focus on. What God has done for me. And what God wants us to understand, it's his rod and his staff that's fighting for us. Even in the Old Testament, who was fighting for the children of Israel? Come on. Who was fighting for the children of Israel in Egypt when they came out of Egypt? Who was fighting for them? Who would help them prepare them for the battles that they were fighting?
God.
It was God. So did he not tip them off as to how that they need to go about doing things? So that these people would not overtake them? The same God that was fighting for the group is the same God that's in you, using his rod and his staff to fight for you. Fight for you with health reasons, fight for you with job reasons, fight for you with money reasons, fight for you with grade reasons, fight for you with activity reasons, for you to be better in whatever sports or activity you're involved in. The same God is in you, using his rod and his staff to fight for you. That's who we are. We are children of light, not children of darkness. So don't act like a child of what? Darkness. Continue reading, please.
For they that sleep, sleep in the night, and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. But let us, who are of the day, be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for an helmet, the hope of salvation.
Hear what the Bible said. The word gave us, Paul gave an analogy. He said, for they that sleep, they sleep at night. For people who drink, they drink where? In the night.
Right.
He said, now, that's what people do. They sleep in the night and they drink in the night. That's the analogy that he gave. He said, but let me tell you what you are supposed to be doing. But let us who are of the day, let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, having faith or believing in the word that we live by, and having a love for the word that we live by. And for a helmet, and where do you put a helmet?
Head.
On your head. Where do all the thoughts come in that cause you to think that your life is going to crumble because the world is crumbling?
Head.
They come in your head. So what did he say put on your head?
Helmet.
A helmet to do what? What are you going to use a helmet? What do you put a helmet on to do? To protect what?
The head, your thoughts, the helmet of salvation.
The head, the thoughts, your salvation, to protect it from the adversity, from the darkness, from the bad thoughts, from the imaginations that can cause you to become drunk thinking that all this stuff is going to happen to you. You got to remember who you are. And so the Bible is telling us here, it said, put on the helmet. And what is the helmet for? It is the hope of what?
Salvation.
Salvation. Remember I told you and I taught you that salvation is not something that you experience just because you become born again. Each and every day of our lives in our vineyards, we are saved. We are saved throughout the day. When I was going on the expressway and that unfortunate situation happened with that person who was life, the life was cut off, salvation was extended to me. Salvation is extended to us every day throughout our day. So that helmet is to protect against the adverse things that can happen to our thinking, through our mind, having the mind of Christ. It's the things that come against having the mind of Christ. That's what he is telling us here. He's asserting here. Because it is a thing that helps us to have hope that God is going to save us. How will he save us? Using his rod and his staff. Now, why is this necessary for us to live this way? Look at what the Bible said in the 9th verse.
For God has not appointed us to wrath.
God is not what?
Appointed us.
Appointed us. What is, if somebody appoints you, what does that mean? If someone appoints you to you, what does it mean if someone appointed you? You appointed something. Let's say you appointed a hall monitor. What does that mean?
Chosen.
You were chosen, isn't that right? You were selected for a special purpose, wasn't it?
Right.
The Bible is saying God did not select us for what?
Wrath to
Well, why has God, Bible scholars, in our Old Testament learnings, why did God dispense wrath unto the general population? Why?
Disobedience.
Disobedience. So the Bible is saying God has not appointed us to wrath. Well, is there going to be bad? What is it telling us? Is there going to be bad stuff happening around us? Absolutely yes. Why? Because everybody hadn't got it. Everybody hadn't become a child of light. They don't realize the importance of it. And so while these things are happening around us, you're going to have people who are living in darkness, and they're going to be coming to you because they're going to want you to validate that their thinking of the world is still correct. And you can't validate it. What you got to say, well, I understand what you may be going through, but all I know is what he's doing for moi. A person cannot see light if the light is mixed up with the darkness. If the light doesn't have a backbone and is willing to stand for that which they live for, what has been saving them, what has been preserving them, what has been giving them health, what has been giving them strength. That's why God is letting us know he didn't appoint us to be involved in all of this bad stuff that's happening around. But look at what he said he did appoint us to do. What is our appointment then? Continue reading that for us, brother.
But to obtain salvation by our Lord Jesus Christ.
See, because of Jesus Christ, we are to obtain salvation when we are walking through the valley of the shadow of death. Well, how do we get salvation when we're walking through the valley of the shadow of death? Through the rod and the staff of God. God's rod and God's staff keeps the valley of the shadow of death, or the wrath of God, away from who? Us. In Egypt, how did God keep the wrath of God away from the children of Israel? Bible scholars?
the blood.
It was the blood. They put lamb's blood. Where did they put it? Did they put it on themselves? Did they put it in their hair? Did they put it on their shoes? Where did they put it?
On the door.
They put it on the door of what? They put it on the door, over the door of what? Over the door of their homes, didn't they? Of the building that they were in, didn't they? And what that allowed is the trouble to do what? It went around them, did it not?
Yes.
The Bible said it went around them. When it saw the blood over the door, the trouble, the wrath went around them. What I'm trying to get you to see, where is that blood today?
Within us.
It's in you. So the rod and the staff that protects you is keeping you and extending salvation to you to keep you from going through the wrath that's going on around us. This is what God has appointed us for, salvation. And all our testimony should be, all I know is God is preserving me. That's all I know. Yeah, I know it's a challenging time out there. All I know is God has found a way, gave me insight to make choices, allowed me to see that if I make these choices, it's going to lead me where I want to be. I might not see the whole picture, but I see that I made these choices and I keep going forward. I'm not going backwards, I'm going forward. So that means I must be on the right track. What I have to do is change my thinking.
Oh, praise be to God, from whom all blessings flow. It is our prayer at Clay Family Ministries that your life has been increased with the increase of God through this study. We appreciate and are thankful for your fellowship during this life skills study segment.